The nation's favourite family is at war.
The eldest son of Sir David Beckham and Lady Victoria has gone nuclear.
The simmering feud erupted in public today, and how?
The world has watched as the firstborn son of the Beckham dynasty has publicly disowned his family.
He made it very clear by saying, "I do not want to reconcile."
But behind the glossy £500 million empire, cracks were quietly forming.
This is the biggest showbiz story since Harry and Meghan.
And now, Brooklyn Beckham's bombshell statement has exploded the perfect family image.
We're so proud of our children. You know, they're very humble, they're very kind.
Lifting the lid on years of simmering tension between the Beckhams, Brooklyn, and his billionaire heiress wife, Nicola.
It's so damning and it's so conclusive, it makes it nigh on impossible to get back in a room with his parents.
But in this bitter family feud, who can really be trusted?
There probably is a lot of truth to what Brooklyn said, and there are probably a lot of lies as well.
Now, David Beckham's alleged former mistress exclusively exposes the reality behind the brand.
What they were putting in the public didn't really match what I was seeing behind closed doors. That's what their big PR machine does.
And what could this scandal mean for brand Beckham?
If David and Victoria don't play this one wisely, it could potentially be the end of brand Beckham.
On the 19th of January, a post is published on social media that reverberates across the globe.
This story is the biggest drop I think we've seen in the last 3 decades.
We had never, in showbiz culture that I can remember, seen anything quite as astonishing as this.
A 6-page Instagram story is posted by Brooklyn Peltz Beckham, son of legendary footballer David and iconic pop star Victoria.
I read the full statement, I audibly gasped several times, and then I immediately texted about 3 group chats to try and talk to them about it.
The 800-word statement, shared with his 17 million followers, sends news outlets into meltdown.
The simmering feud between, on the one hand, Brooklyn Beckham and his wife Nicola Peltz, and on the other, his parents David and Victoria Beckham, erupted in public today, and how?
Posting on Instagram, he accused Lady Victoria and Sir David Beckham of controlling behaviour.
Amid basically some of the most tense geopolitical times we've experienced in recent history, Brooklyn Beckham's statement was top of the agenda. On most newspapers, most websites, everyone on social media was talking about it.
The devastating post marks a dramatic decision for Brooklyn.
This post was him burning all bridges. I think that's why he made it very clear in the statement by saying, "I do not want to reconcile."
The statement details long-rumoured tensions between the Beckhams, Brooklyn, and his wife, Nicola Peltz, daughter of billionaire businessman Nelson Peltz.
It finally confirmed that pretty much since his wedding to the billionaire heiress Nicola Peltz in 2022, there has been family infighting.
Up until that point, everything that was going on within the Beckham family was just hearsay and speculation. No one had actually confirmed or denied that there was a rift going on.
So what's interesting is that Nicola went on the record both before and after the wedding, saying everything was fine, there was no rift.
In numerous interviews, Nicola denied there ever was a feud, tried to minimize the fallout from all the drama that happened at the wedding. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Brooklyn's post contains a series of blistering claims, starting with a mortifying account of a first dance gone wrong.
The inappropriate dancing at the wedding, that's diabolical to say. That's scandalous to say! That his mum basically hijacked his first dance with his wife that they'd planned for months and months.
Next, a bitter dispute around the use of Brooklyn's name.
One of the wildest moments from Brooklyn's statement is when he claimed David and Victoria were pressuring him to sign away the rights to his name.
So you're throwing in words like trademark, when you're talking about your family is just next level.
I would get so mad. I'd be like, well, take it.
And finally, a drama around Nicola's wedding dress.
In that Instagram post, Brooklyn has said that Victoria had pulled out from designing the dress at the 11th hour. You know, that is something that's really negative for Victoria's PR and her brand.
She is the one who is really featured the most in his statement. And the allegations seem to be mainly levelled against her.
But it isn't just Victoria who comes under fire. The statement is a shot across the bows for the entire Beckham clan.
What Brooklyn seems to be accusing his parents of overall is control over his life, and his pregnancy announcement was sold, his baby photos were sold. He has been a commodity in a lot of ways his whole life.
Basically calling them phonies, expressing that this entire image they've curated of a perfect family is false and that everything's in service to the brand, everything's in service to basically the commercial aspect of the Beckhams.
As the feud unravels, there is one other person who knows exactly what it's like to go up against the Beckhams.
My name is Rebecca Lowes, and 22 years ago, I was the personal assistant of David and Victoria Beckham in Madrid.
In the noughties, Rebecca revealed an alleged affair with David, something he's always denied. The scandal was alluded to in his blockbuster 2023 Netflix documentary.
There was some horrible stories that were difficult to deal with. It was the first time that me and Victoria had been put under that kind of pressure.
I think I realised they were much more of a brand because what they were putting in the public didn't really match what I was seeing behind closed doors. They really had this kind of image they were trying to portray, and, you know, no matter whoever tried to sort of tear the curtains down, and that image was very, very strong, and all they kind of focused on was the impression I got. I believe every single word in his statement. He's so brave to come forward. He's so brave to speak publicly.
Following her allegations of an affair, Rebecca says she faced the full might of the Beckham PR machine.
I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. I knew people were going to come after me. David is, you know, he's the golden boy of England. And suddenly you're part of a big PR war. In a very small way, this is, of course, validation for what I said and came forward and said 22 years ago. Brooklyn is basically confirming inauthentic relationships, value promotion, endorsements above all else, and that it's all focused on brand Beckham, and that's all that matters. I think this statement is the tip of the iceberg.
As the relationship with his family lies in tatters, what is the truth? Are these the complaints of an entitled son with an axe to grind?
If you are David Beckham, you must be thinking, I've given you everything. I mean, ungrateful little wretch springs to mind.
I understand a lot of people thinking that Brooklyn is a spoiled brat.
Or is this a hurt young man opening up about his trauma?
I see a young person who's had a tough childhood, a lot of anxiety, which he himself says, and who's craving safety and craving safe boundaries.
In a scandal that has captured the world's attention, which side of the story is to be believed?
This is why we're all really invested, because who is telling the truth and how much of the truth are they telling?
If you're gonna lay it all out there, you gotta be careful with telling lies or half-truths that could easily be debunked or explained away.
Is something really rotten in the house of Beckham?
I don't think this is the full picture at all.
There's more to this than meets the eye.
One of the most famous families in the world is waging a civil war. It's Beckham versus Beckham in a game of truth and lies. And Brooklyn fired the first shot. His searing Instagram post not only broke the internet, it also threatened brand Beckham. In his statement, Brooklyn claimed his parents had controlled him his whole life, which led to a childhood of battling anxiety.
I think any statement put out by an individual is going to be reflective of their personal truth rather than a broader truth.
But then to say the things about the family dynamic in terms of how he was growing up with anxiety and that they never took care of him in that way, they must feel like they let down their own son in a way for him to come out like this. Sources close to Nicola and Brooklyn said that he had been made to feel stupid and belittled in the family dynamic, and particularly they pointed out by his mother.
I have sympathy for both sides in this, but Brooklyn, by saying the things he said, was incredibly hurtful, and I don't think Brooklyn is a nasty person. If Brooklyn is, as some people have referred to it in the papers and online, some spoiled, entitled monster, the monster was created by David and Victoria.
Brooklyn and his wife said they don't want their life shaped by image, press or manipulation. But for David and Victoria, Brand Beckham is 30 years in the making. The late 90s. He was a superstar footballer with Man United, and she was a Spice Girl.
Victoria and David were the biggest superstars in the world.
Posh and Becks were tabloid royalty, and a match made in a gossip columnist's dream.
When they met, Victoria was the more famous one. She was a Spice Girl, she was Posh Spice. David was still at the sort of beginning stages, relatively speaking, in his Manchester United career.
At the beginning, they actually did have a lot of people around them who kind of really helped shape who they were. Obviously, as individual stars, you know, they were really managed. And this is one of the best brand stories of all time.
Congratulations. Soccer and Spice. David Beckham, one of the most famous faces in football, and Victoria Adams, better known as Posh Spice, posing for pictures after announcing their engagement.
I'm embarrassed now, stop it.
It was OK magazine that brokered the deal to make David and Victoria's wedding back in 1999 the most expensive celebrity wedding to be sold. Richard Desmond paid £1 million for that. That issue sold over 1 million copies. On their wedding night, they sat up until 3 in the morning, going through the pictures, helping write the captions and making sure the headlines were OK. That's how determined they were to be Brand Beckham from the word go.
Brand Beckham, you know, in the 90s, they were really Posh and Becks. You know, they were synonymous with 90s success, with celebrity. They were doing fashion deals with people like Roberto Cavalli. They were going to Elton John's White Tie and Tiara Ball. Everything was quite vulgar. Everything was quite over the top.
Such was the power of Posh and Becks, they became pop culture icons in the 90s and early noughties.
She's so gorgeous and talented. I love it. Please say hello. And then Victoria. I'm sorry.
Even if you're not invested in who they are, you just know because it's part of our cultural fabric as British people, which sounds ridiculous, but that is just how it is, you know? I can think of that famous quote from Love Actually when Hugh Grant is playing the Prime Minister and he's talking about what it means to be British.
We may be a small country, but we're a great one too. Country of Shakespeare, Churchill, the Beatles, Sean Connery, Harry Potter. David Beckham's right foot. David Beckham's left foot, come to that.
And who could forget Victoria's iconic scene in the 1997 Spice World movie, commandeering the girls' tour bus in a race across London.
Sunday drivers! It's only Saturday!
It wasn't just their wedding and their film appearances that the Beckhams saw as a chance to cash in. The money kept coming. When Brooklyn was born in 1999, the media claimed he was the most bankable baby in the world.
Where I feel sorry for Brooklyn in this is like he's been sold as a commodity as part of Brand Beckham since before he was born. They sold Victoria's pregnancy. They sold the first pictures of Brooklyn. They sold pictures of his nursery. So for Brooklyn to turn around and say, my family have treated me as a commodity, all they care about is Brown Beckham, he has a point.
Having Brooklyn basically been bought, a picture of him by OK for £1 million is crazy. It's this kind of weird zeitgeist of celebrity or royalty that we have to expose or tell people how our wonderful child looks. And I think Victoria and David knew that the whole of the world really wants to know what the child looked like and how she was feeling. And that's their best way of sort of creating that narrative, by sending it to a paper.
2 more sons quickly followed, and 6 years later, David and Victoria welcomed a daughter.
You've got model Romeo, who was, he's fronted campaigns for Burberry. He's a beautiful boy. He's played football for Brentford's kind of B-side. 20-year-old Cruz, who's making it as a music artist. He's got a band. We've got Harper, who's 14. These 3 children, whilst they've had a lot of scrutiny on them, probably nowhere near as much as Brooklyn.
Along with their growing family, we've also seen the transformation of Brand Beckham.
We've seen him as a footballer, so that's a brand. We've seen her as a pop star. And then we've seen this huge evolution to fashion icons, beauty icons, him as a designer, him as an ambassador. And we've got to a stage now that are a lord and lady of brands. Who even thought that would ever happen?
Their public positioning in the 90s was very different. It's very cringe, it's just embarrassing. But that shift to now, Victoria being talked about in Vogue and David being talked about in Vogue, and that societal, pop cultural climb and ascendance in a way, to being taken more seriously.
David and Victoria Beckham, they make every single person sign what's called an NDA, which is, many people don't know this, but it's a contract which forbids you from speaking or revealing anything to the public or to anyone. And that is probably the greatest form of control there is of a narrative.
But being the oldest son of one of the most famous couples in the world had its challenges, and Brooklyn has been much derided for his ever-changing careers.
For somebody with severe anxiety, Brooklyn, for the last decade or so, has repeatedly done things that are very forward-facing. He never pursued career paths that were behind the scenes. He tried modeling, he tried celebrity photography, he tried being a chef and a social media influencer. All of which he got because of his name.
All right.
And in 2021, he appeared on NBC's Today programme.
So I first put sausage.
Sausage. Yes, come on, Brooklyn.
Where he showed off his culinary skills by making a breakfast sandwich.
Bacon and then the egg.
Okay.
Moon's over Miami. Yeah.
No, wait, what about the ketchup?
Ketchup.
Oh,
very nice.
Ketchup.
That's a good touch.
Right on top of the
Yeah,
egg.
it actually
it's great.
And people on the internet questioned the segment, and more so, why he hadn't toasted the bread.
I feel quite sorry for Brooklyn Beckham. I don't think he is a naturally talented man in any real area that he has pursued at this stage. He's tried his hand at photography to not a great reception, shall we say. He was very widely mocked and derided for his photography book.
He did this famous photography book where there was an elephant that was blurred and not in shot.
And I think Brooklyn is the only one of the children, really, who has struggled to find his place and find his purpose in life.
Let him find his way, and shame on anyone who's mocking him or, this is a young man finding his way, finding his path in life. So what if he's changed careers? Who says that the career you choose when you're 22 is the one you have to do for the rest of your life?
I think there's a pressure for anybody who lives in the public eye, who've been brought up in it, to feel they've got to be a bit like their mother and father. So I think he felt that he needs to prove himself.
But the accusations of being a Nepo baby followed. And social media users were all too happy to share their brutal opinions.
I guess you could say that Brooklyn Beckham is the ultimate Nepo baby now, where basically you get on in life because purely of your mum and dad and what your surname is.
His parents gave him the absolute best start in life, everything he wanted. He's had every opportunity to do what he wants, and very, very few children today can say that.
the old Steve McQueen Submariners.
In one widely spread interview with GQ, Brooklyn talks about a collection of expensive watches he has been gifted over the years.
And stuff like that. And then my mother-in-law bought me and my wife matching Cartier, you know, like the old school square ones. So she bought us those, which we wear sometimes together. But today I'm wearing the Pepsi.
Brooklyn Beckham is like Nepo Baby Supreme. And he squeezed it until he didn't have to anymore. Because now Brooklyn Beckham is married to the daughter of a billionaire.
It's not just his many careers that have been followed. His high-profile relationships have also brought attention to the oldest Beckham.
He actually got away with quite a few romances behind the scenes. He's dated Rita Ora, he's dated Madison Beer.
He quite notably also dated Chloe Grace Moretz, the actress. They were together for a considerable amount of time.
Brooklyn first crossed paths with his future wife at Coachella in 2017, when he was just 18, though they wouldn't get together until 2 years later.
It's believed that Brooklyn and Nicola met again at a Halloween party thrown by Leonardo DiCaprio, which makes absolute sense.
From David and Victoria's perspective, when they found out about this woman, they were absolutely delighted. And I remember one of David Beckham's friends said to me, you know, finally he's met a girl who's not after him for his money.
But who is Nicola Peltz?
The Peltzes are, you know, billionaires, and she is a billionaire heiress. Nelson Peltz is an investor. He is a Mar-a-Lago type who has donated quite a bit to Donald Trump, friendly with Elon Musk.
I think initially Nicola seemed like the kind of person that David and Victoria wanted their son to marry. But as they got to know her and her parents better, their opinion changed.
I think it's really important, obviously, when somebody comes into a sort of dynasty like the Beckhams, that they've got to have the right person who's going to be part of it and carry on their sort of legacy as well. So someone like Nicola is actually quite interesting because she comes from a billionaire family, and actually to be sort of in a relationship with somebody in the Beckham family is actually really felt quite nice. It felt like they understood each other.
Brooklyn and Nicola announced their engagement in 2020, and there was a show of public support from the Beckhams, with Victoria posting an enthusiastic message on her Instagram, writing that she could not be happier for the couple. In private, the Beckham family had started to rupture. Brooklyn and Nicola's fairy tale wedding in Palm Beach in April 2022 was set to be a star-studded affair. 500 guests joined them to celebrate, including a who's who of celebrities like Eva Longoria, Serena and Venus Williams, and Gordon Ramsay. But was this the moment it all went wrong?
If you are marrying into a family where your mother-in-law is a fashion designer, a very well-established, very well-respected fashion designer, you would sort of expect the bride to be wearing a design by the mother-in-law.
As their war of words raged on, Brooklyn dropped details on a major faux pas that ruined the wedding.
You have to feel sorry for any mum and dad reading that your own child has said that about you. It's going to break your heart.
There is a statement that goes to people from a source close to the Peltz Beckhams saying, no one is ever going to see the dance.
Are at war. Brooklyn Beckham has made a searing attack on his parents with allegations that grabbed the world's attention. He accused David and Victoria of lying repeatedly. So who's telling the truth? In April 2022, Brooklyn and Nicola married in Palm Beach, Florida, in an opulent and star-studded ceremony captured in stunning images by Vogue magazine. The wedding cost a reported £3 million.
It was very similar to a royal wedding. We had all these huge international stars, whether that's Mark Antony, whether that's Eva Longoria, everybody flying in for a 3-day extravaganza. Serena Williams is there. You know, some of the biggest stars in the world are there, bigger than the Beckhams and bigger than the Peltzes.
But there was trouble in paradise.
At the time, there were all sorts of rumours about Nicola being a bridezilla and an absolute monster and being so excessively demanding.
What we didn't know was that Nicola and her mother-in-law, Victoria Beckham, had fallen out.
Because there was this tension over whether she would wear a Victoria Beckham label dress. And of course, she didn't.
It was the dress. The dress. I think a lot of people were very shocked when Nicola chose to wear Valentino instead. And there were stories about how Victoria had offered to make the dress and Nicola didn't want it and she chose to go with Valentino instead, and that was what caused the rift. And then there was a whole rumour that Victoria had refused, or that Victoria had said she didn't have enough time. And then this is obviously what Brooklyn's statement now feeds into, which is that Victoria was going to make the dress and then she turned around at the last minute and said, I actually can't do it, and forced poor Nicola to wear Valentino Couture instead. But, you know, I weep. Terrible.
It became labelled as a snub to her future mother-in-law. There is no doubt that Victoria has poured sweat, blood and tears into her fashion label and into changing her reputation from Posh Spice to a serious fashion designer.
If it's really true that Victoria did pull out at the last minute, that's cold, man. That is cold. I don't know why my gut is telling me it's not true.
There probably is a lot of truth to what Brooklyn said, and there are probably a lot of lies as well. Nicola Peltz is the daughter of a billionaire. She was not suffering any shortage of dresses, but in his statement, Brooklyn made it seem like it was such a horrible thing that happened and she was panicked to find a dress. That's not true. She had multiple other dresses from very fancy designers already lined up.
Clearly, the dress was a huge source of animosity. But what's the truth? Do Brooklyn's claims stand up to scrutiny?
Part and parcel of living an online life is that there is an archive of facts, and people have really pointed to this with Brooklyn Beckham as evidence of inconsistencies. For example, with the wedding dress. He says in his statement that his mother had pulled out of making his wife's dress at the 11th hour. However, in a Vogue profile published around the time of the wedding, Nicola discusses going to the atelier for Valentino and having hundreds of hours of fittings for this custom Valentino dress. And anyone that knows anything about fashion knows that a custom Valentino dress doesn't come out of nowhere, even if you're incredibly wealthy.
So Brooklyn saying that Victoria cancelled the dress at the 11th hour, I think there's some confusion because we don't know, A, whether Nicola commissioned 3 dresses, 2 dresses, we don't know. She has the funds to do so. She might have just commissioned Valentino as a backup and maybe Victoria found out. All I know is that, especially when Vogue covers a wedding, the centerpiece is the dress, and that is the dress you wear in the ceremony.
The wedding was definitely a flashpoint for the family feud. And it wasn't just because of the dress.
One of the most hurtful things, I think, in the whole Instagram post that are aimed at Victoria was the fact that at the wedding, Victoria was allegedly dancing on her son. She's alleged to have hijacked the first dance and was dancing on her son. It's just a bit icky, isn't it?
Within the hour, we were seeing memes about Victoria dancing inappropriately with Brooklyn at his wedding, and it just went berserk.
The internet is thrilled. I don't think I've ever seen so many memes about one particular word.
The internet just doesn't sleep. People are so quick, and now we have AI, even quicker. Some of the videos I've seen of Victoria are just absolutely hilarious.
In his statement, Brooklyn said Victoria hijacked the first dance and danced very inappropriately.
You have to feel sorry for any mum and dad reading that your own child has said that about you. It's going to break your heart.
But is he telling the truth? A report in British Vogue claimed pop star Mark Antony, who was performing at the wedding, invited Brooklyn and his mother on stage to dance.
I think Mark Anthony, who is a friend of David and Victoria's for decades, went off script. He didn't do what was supposed to happen, which is he was supposed to bring up Brooklyn and Nicola, and they were supposed to have another dance. Instead, he called up Victoria.
Two people that were there, one from the Beckham camp and one from the Peltz camp, and they both say, surprisingly enough, completely contrary things. So one of the Beckham's friends says, look, it wasn't inappropriate, no one was talking about it, it was just a very sweet moment, and also, which is very important, Brooklyn and Nicola had already had their first dance, whereas someone I know who's on the American Peltz side says it was the talk of the wedding the next morning at breakfast. All anyone could talk about was, oh my God, did you see this first dance? It was so inappropriate. Victoria's grinding. Poor Brooklyn. Brooklyn cried that day. Nicola cried that day. So who do you believe? It's really hard.
There is a statement from a source close to the Peltz Beckhams saying no one is ever going to see the dance. The only people who have that footage are Nicola and Brooklyn, and they're never going to share it.
If we can't see the video, the next best thing is an eyewitness account.
Okay, so Fat Tony has spoken. He's been on this morning speaking about the inappropriate dance.
Fat Tony is a renowned British DJ and friend of the Beckham family and was booked to play at Brooklyn and Nicola's wedding. 5 days after Brooklyn's post, ITV's This Morning blew the lid off the speculation with an eye-opening interview.
One person who was actually at the wedding is our next guest, DJ Fat Tony. Hello.
Welcome,
Tony.
Tony.
Hi,
guys. There was no slut dropping. There was no black cat PVC cat suits. There was no Spice Girl action. This is what happened, guys. Right. So basically, Mark Anthony was performing on stage. He then called Brooklyn onto stage. Brooklyn went onto the stage where the next minute everyone was expecting it to be Nicola to go up and do the first dance. And then Mark Anthony asks the most beautifulest woman in the room to come to the stage. And then he says, Victoria, come to the stage. So Victoria's by the stage, she goes onto the stage. And of course, at that point, Brooklyn's like suddenly literally devastated because he thought he was going to do his first dance with his wife. Then Nicola leaves the room crying her eyes out. Brooklyn's stuck there on stage, and then they do this dance, and Mark Anthony's like, go, put your hands on your mother's hips. And it was a Latin, it's a Latin thing. And the whole situation was really awkward for everyone in the room.
I have a source who was there at the wedding and verified the Mark Anthony rumour about him calling Victoria the most beautiful woman that night. At any wedding, you are not allowed to say that unless it's the bride. You just can't.
Mark Anthony is to blame for all of this. Victoria sort of awkwardly is having to dance with Brooklyn and being directed by Mark Anthony to put his hands on her hips. And whatever you think about it, it all seems a little bit strange how a wedding that's planned to the absolute millisecond suddenly seems to implode because of Mark Anthony, not because of Victoria, is crazy.
Really, not since the days of Julius Caesar has a Mark Anthony been so pivotal in the downfall of an empire.
Whatever the truth, everyone's got an opinion.
Whether it came from her or whether it was Mark Anthony is beside the point, because it shows a lack of awareness for other people's feelings. I think any other mother would have read the room and understood this is awkward and probably said, thank you for the compliment, but the most beautiful woman in the room is Nicola. Nicola, please take this dance. Or at least if the mother had had a few too many glasses of wine and was unable to read the room, maybe the husband or the father would then have maybe stepped in and maybe grabbed Nicola and twirled her around and then swapped partners to let her have the dance.
But it appears a storm was gathering before the wedding, during the planning.
There was notably a lawsuit filed by Nicola Peltz's father towards the wedding planners.
After hiring then firing a set of wedding planners within 9 days, Nelson Peltz then sued them after they didn't immediately return the deposit. The wedding planners countersued, claiming that Nicola and her mother had insisted that Victoria Beckham could not know about any internal mistakes in the planning.
That lawsuit shows a very intense friction between Nicola and Victoria. It's almost like Nicola was afraid of what Victoria would think of her and also afraid of her reputation being tarnished for being an overly demanding, overzealous bride. For the wedding planners to take legal action gives you a little glimpse into what was going on behind closed doors in the planning of that wedding and the actual wedding itself.
In yet another jaw-dropping allegation, Brooklyn claimed that Mum Victoria called him evil during the wedding planning for not putting herself and David at the top table.
The words that Brooklyn uses, that his mother said he was evil, they are really strong words that will damage Brown Beckham in a way, because people don't expect that to come from someone like Victoria, who's very level-headed.
It's about closeness. It's about who has the most control and not liking it when someone else has greater power or is being perceived to be, because it was about top table. It was about who was being sat next to him. The wedding is a symbol of that enmeshment properly breaking. If you are even slightly codependent with your children, creating separation makes him the enemy.
Brooklyn's statement continued. The night before our wedding, members of my family told me that Nicola was not blood and not family.
Everything about Nicola not being blood, that's just weird, because what are you trying to say? Why would we be marrying someone that is blood in our family? That's a crazy thing to say.
But Brooklyn dropped even more explosive claims about David and Victoria.
Brooklyn says that his father refused to see him unless he came, without Nicola. That's powerful. That's strong.
That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt if you're Brooklyn Beckham and the new bride, obviously.
Can Brand Beckham weather the storm?
There were whispers of a problem within the Beckham family after the wedding of Nicola and Brooklyn. He feels he's been completely thrown under the bus in service to Brand Beckham.
Brooklyn released a bombshell statement sensationally revealing the family were at war and claiming his parents were to blame.
There's been too many shots fired for it not to be taken seriously.
Brooklyn's statement quite literally exploded online. I mean, it was one of those statements that sort of broke the internet. There were whispers of a problem within the Beckham family after the wedding of Nicola and Brooklyn. He feels he's been completely thrown under the bus in service to Brand Beckham.
Less than 6 months after the wedding, despite rumours of a rift, the family were putting on a united front, with the newlyweds joining the rest of the Beckham clan at Victoria's Paris fashion show, even featuring on Victoria's Instagram.
I'm sure that after the wedding fiasco, they tried very hard to make it seem like it was all smooth sailing. I think that celebrities work really hard to make it seem like they have it all together, because the more perfect they seem, the more that people will aspire to be like them.
And into the middle, please, both here into the middle.
A year later, they were together again at the premiere of David's Netflix documentary, Beckham. But this time, cracks were beginning to show.
There's an awkward moment between Victoria and Nicola where Brooklyn's kind of pulling Nicola in to pose on the red carpet. She does not look happy.
The body language of Victoria appears to freeze Nicola out. She sort of turns in such a way that Nicola can't get in, and Brooklyn's seen trying to sort of touch his mum and say, come on, come and give us some attention. And it just looks a bit like a cold shoulder.
Despite the apparent tension, it was soon Nicola's turn to be centre stage at the premiere of her own movie, Lola, in February 2024. And this time, it was all smiles as she was interviewed on the red carpet.
And I'm just so happy to have everyone I love in one space, and it means so much to me, and I hope you guys all enjoy it.
Joined by Victoria and brother-in-law Cruz, she even wore an outfit designed by her mother-in-law's fashion label. The love-in continued, with Victoria and Nicola commenting on how much they loved each other on social media.
they had been very vocal about each other on social media, sort of very openly praising each other at the premiere of Nicola's film Lola, which was attended by her father, the billionaire Nelson Peltz, and Elon Musk. Victoria publicly, advertised the film, said to everyone to go and see it.
They were doing those Instagram posts, love you so much, best daughter-in-law, best mother-in-law. It's always that rammed down your throat, like, love you, kisses, XYZ.
What we've seen on social media is a very performative way of showing your love. And Victoria has always done this, whether it's a birthday or a special occasion, saying kisses, love, BB. And it's fed into this unity of a family image.
Outwardly, all appeared well for the Beckhams. But Brooklyn's statement sensationally suggested their family bond was a manufactured illusion, hiding a reality far darker than the public could have imagined.
And I think at the heart of his allegations is, unless you are in service to Brand Beckham and don't portray this perfect family dynamic, you are kind of not on their side.
Brand Beckham coming first is something the family's former assistant, Rebecca Lowes, understands more than most.
I think the Beckham brand is so powerful. I think they seem to get through anything or spin things around to, make it look like it's in their favor.
Brooklyn is very critical of Brand Beckham now, but that was not the case. Year after year after year, Brooklyn Beckham did nothing but praise his parents, did nothing but prop up Brand Beckham because it helped him.
I highly doubt that Brooklyn Beckham has any idea the amount of time and work that has been put into Beckham as a brand, but I think he's about to figure it out.
Despite the Beckhams' public show of support for Nicola's film career, Brooklyn dramatically revealed Victoria's support was not always so forthcoming.
Another shocking moment from the statement was the allegation from Brooklyn Beckham that his mother had refused to help his wife with rehoming displaced dogs during the LA fires. It was something that very quickly saw a wave of criticism on social media because there was a lot of displaced people in the LA fires.
It seems as if Victoria has supported her as best as she could. I think it was probably an attempt to make her look like a monster.
But what it is indicative of is a lot of this statement feels more angled at Victoria. David doesn't get a look in the statement in the same way.
Most of Brooklyn's anger has seemingly been directed at his mother, but even his brothers couldn't escape the firing line.
The danger for Brooklyn here is it's not just about his parents. This is also hurting his siblings. And while David and Victoria might be able to forgive but never forget, his brothers, especially, that are around his age, young men in their 20s don't always think rationally.
I think it's really sad for the siblings because you look at their Netflix show that they did as a family, they seemed super tight and super close.
Going through every part of my life, it has given me clarity on many things. And one of the things is, which is the most important thing to me, is what we've got.
Speculation of a rift between the brothers surfaced in early 2025 as rumours grew that Brooklyn and Romeo had clashed over Romeo's girlfriend, Kim Turnbull.
Kim Turnbull is a model and DJ. She's worked with some big name sports brands. She's kind of part of that London it girl sort of scene. She has tens of thousands of followers on Instagram. But the rumours that were circulating about that was that Brooklyn was unhappy about her dating Romeo.
Brooklyn claims that he dated her at school and then she ended up dating his younger brother, which if that happened, that would be really annoying. But if you're 15, 16 and you have snog and you hold hands, is it really that big a deal? David and Victoria and Romeo's friends say, they've never even dated, this is nonsense.
Kim took to Instagram herself, denying any relationship with the eldest Beckham brother. Romeo's relationship with Kim is now rumoured to be what Brooklyn was alluding to in his explosive Instagram post.
Whether there are other women that he's dated that Victoria's then become friends with, you know, who knows? Again, Victoria, her friends say, like, this didn't happen, and if it did, it was just coincidental, and it was nothing sort of Machiavellian.
May 2025 marked a major milestone as David Beckham turned 50. But the celebrations became another flashpoint in the family feud when Brooklyn and Nicola failed to show. Their absence notable as the family shared pictures online.
A 50th birthday celebration is a big event in any family, let alone a family like the Beckhams. The celebration was huge. You have the likes of Tom Cruise dancing way into the night.
I think when Brooklyn missed David's 50th, this was a huge red flag. This is when everyone sat up and thought, do you know what? There are some occasions you can't make. Your dad's 50th is not one of those. And of course, the Beckhams are posting family photos, videos from the occasion, everyone there, everyone's having a good time. But for him not to be there, that's huge. That's massive.
At the time, his absence was linked to Kim Turnbull and his reported upset over her relationship with his younger brother.
You know, we get the impression from Brooklyn and Nicola that they don't want to be in the same room as Romeo and his girlfriend. And again, no one seems willing to go on the record and say, this is the truth.
Brooklyn's failure to show up for his father's birthday looked at first like a very public snub. But according to his post, things behind the scenes were far worse.
According to his bombshell statement, him and Nicola were in London. They were waiting in a hotel room for a week to see David and the family and celebrate David's birthday. And apparently the only time that David wanted to facilitate the meeting was at his birthday party, where all the photographers were going to be taking those snaps that they can post picture perfect online.
Brooklyn says that his father refused to see him unless he came, you know, without Nicola. Which is, you know, it's quite a hefty thing for a father to say to his son, and obviously hurtful for Brooklyn and hurtful for Nicola.
Brooklyn's account has left many stunned, with some questioning his recollection of events, pointing out he did have another opportunity to spend time with his family, away from the cameras.
So you got David Beckham posting with Cruise and Romeo saying 6 months ago they planned this fishing trip for his 50th birthday. And you've got Brooklyn saying, I was in a hotel room for a week, couldn't get anywhere near my dad unless it was a public opportunity.
You can see his dad wants him there in the wilderness of Scotland to catch some fish. You know, that's not about a red carpet. That's not about a team of paparazzi outside. That is just family time.
People have taken this as evidence that Brooklyn is rejecting opportunities to see his father, which is contrary to the narrative that he's putting across. And people have really argued, you know, it's a two-way street. And if he's trying to make the effort with you, then you should be reciprocating that.
After the fishing trip happens, David Beckham posts on his Instagram to Brooklyn directly saying that he was missed, but not including Nicola in any of that. So there's so many parts to unpack here.
Brooklyn unleashed 6 pages of revelations, unravelling what we thought we knew about the Beckhams.
Brooklyn just lit the match and took things absolutely nuclear.
Painting them as ruthless business people, even attempting to keep the rights to his name.
How hurtful is that you don't trust me, or you're ashamed of me, and you want to take my name away from me?
Carefully crafted family brand.
I don't think I've ever seen a celebrity go as nuclear on social media.
Many of his grievances centre on his 2022 wedding to Nicola Peltz.
My mother danced inappropriately on me at the wedding and hijacked my first dance with Nicola.
The couple were apparently so unhappy with their wedding day that they started afresh 3 years later. And the world's media was watching.
Nicola and Brooklyn Peltz Beckham, bride and groom once again. So nice, they did it twice.
The lavish ceremony took place at one of the Peltz family homes in Bedford, New York. On Instagram, the couple shared images of the dress, this time a rewear of Nicola's mother's wedding gown, and of proud father Nelson Peltz officiating the ceremony. But among the 200 guests, there was not a single Beckham.
One of Victoria's friends rang me and said the first she knew about her son renewing his vows was when she read about it online. What a kick to the stomach that must be. It must be really hurtful.
The Beckhams, meanwhile, were posting holiday snaps from the French Riviera.
What I would find astonishing is if that happened to me, when I split up with someone or whatever, I just come off Instagram and I have a bit of a detox. But there doesn't seem to be any detoxing in the Beckhams world. You know, it's full steam ahead, let's crack on.
In his explosive Instagram story, Brooklyn would later explain his actions.
Now, Brooklyn Beckham has circled back to this by saying, we have done this vow renewal because we wanted to create new happy memories around the wedding that aren't filled with anxiety and embarrassment.
I believe there is an element of truth to what he said, but why did he need to share that with the world? He is aware of optics. I believe sharing that on social media was a calculated move on Brooklyn's part to thumb his nose at his parents, to hurt them.
But the vow renewal also marked Brooklyn stepping out of Camp Beckham and into Camp Peltz.
To put it out there, like we had to renew our vows and have this very personal, private moment that only her family is involved with, one has to wonder how much control he has over his life.
I'm pretty sure that Brooklyn did not release that public statement that he did without first running it by his father-in-law. I'm all but certain that Nelson Peltz said, do it, and this is a good thing.
Soon after his marriage, Brooklyn took on his wife's surname, as he candidly explained on US morning television.
I kind of wanted to honour both names, and when we both decided that this is what we wanted to do, I was like, oh, it'd be so cute to have like little Peltz Beckhams running around like at some point. So that's kind of how it
How'd your parents feel about that?
They were happy, yeah. They were happy, yeah.
But Brooklyn would later claim that his name and who owned it was at the centre of his family breakdown.
How hurtful is that you don't trust me, or you're ashamed of me, and you want to take my name away from me? I would get so mad.
In fact, since he was 17, Brooklyn's name has technically been owned by someone else, his mother, Victoria.
The Brooklyn Beckham trademark is owned by Victoria Beckham as parent and guardian of Brooklyn Beckham. This covers a wide range of goods, so it's got cosmetics, clothing, toys.
I think if you're a really big, high-profile family, you're always going to monetize yourself, but also copyright your name as well.
In theory, this is sensible parenting. Going on behind the scenes of Brand Beckham is the fact that everything is legally watertight.
For a child that's under 18, to me, it's not unusual. The fact that it still sits with Victoria, I think at this point, when he's 26, I think, is more unusual.
This trademark is up for renewal in December 2026.
When the trademark expires, I mean, it could be a real non-event, or it could be that if it gets renewed and it gets used, that the legal disputes, they could get messy.
I am wondering whether the fact that the whole copyright on Brooklyn Beckham comes up this year is one of the reasons behind this Instagram post.
While Brooklyn was querying who owned his name, David had a new title added to his.
Being an East London boy and now stood here at Windsor Castle with His Majesty the King giving me a knighthood is something that I could never have imagined happening to me.
He was so proud, you could see it, and so was Victoria, that moment of becoming Sir David Beckham that he had wanted for so long.
We'll have a nice lunch with my parents and my kids, and then maybe a nice dinner tonight.
But yet again, there was someone missing.
Finally it happened. Finally it's a rise to Sir David Beckham. And the fact that Brooklyn wasn't there, I think that would have hurt David enormously.
The feud had hit a new low, but a month later, it would shift to a surprising new battleground.
And that is my simple way of making a chicken breast, potatoes and some vegetables.
The part of the story that has clearly gripped everyone is the roast chicken video.
Right, so it has been beer brining for the last 24 hours.
Posted on the 16th of December, this seemed a typical bit of content for culinary creator Brooklyn. But among the 36,000 likes on the video was one follower he didn't want to see.
The video of him cooking a roast chicken and Victoria liking it. To anyone, that's a normal thing to do. My mum likes my Instagram posts. She's not necessarily trying to speak with him on the phone or send him a letter or a text. She's just double tapping on a chicken video that he's uploaded to social media.
But for Brooklyn, this like seems to have violated a request he made through lawyers.
We know now that Brooklyn had filed legal action and asked for all communications to go through a legal team. And he was unhappy with his parents interacting with his social media.
Days later, journalists noticed what appeared to be unfollows between the Beckham accounts.
It's reported that Victoria and David have unfollowed Brooklyn Beckham. Cruz Beckham then takes to his Instagram stories and publicly addresses this and says they would never do that, they have not unfollowed their son. Rather, Brooklyn Beckham has blocked all of them, including his siblings, and that they had just woken up blocked.
We woke up, we were all blocked. That was like a little crumb that set the firework off, because why are you posting that? You know, you're part of Brand Beckham, bro. What is going on here? That was wild that happened.
Having someone actually from the Beckham clan on social media saying, no, this is what's happening according to me, that hadn't happened before.
It's now open warfare at the House of Beckham. And in the wake of Brooklyn's devastating statement, it's time for David to fight back.
Good afternoon. Your son Brooklyn, Mr. Beckham.
He described his 26-year-old son as a child. It's a way of almost asserting his power.
There are secrets to come out. Brooklyn knows those secrets. It could potentially be the end of Brand Beckham.
Rare that you get a statement like that, and there are so many allegations levelled against his family.
In the 6-page post, he made a series of bombshell allegations about his parents.
They were not supportive of his relationship with Nicola and tried to torpedo it repeatedly, bringing ex-girlfriends back into the family, to asking him to sign away the rights to his name, saying that Nicola is not family.
I think what is at the heart of this is Brooklyn's feeling of a lack of control over his own personal narrative. Brand Beckham comes first.
So if everything's all about business, just how damaging is this for the famous Brand Beckham?
Brooklyn and the other kids have become an extension of Brand Beckham literally from the day they were born.
They want a public persona that they are a tight-knit family and the kids love them.
That has exploded, and I think this is leaving the Brand Beckham in a vulnerable situation because they're not in control.
Only weeks before, David and Victoria had made public gestures towards their estranged son, amid reports they wanted to reconcile. Victoria shared a video over Christmas showing Brooklyn's festive stocking hanging prominently on the wall. Days later, David made an emotional New Year's Eve post of family photos with loving captions. But these might have backfired spectacularly.
It was said that actually reports of him reconciling with his parents were what tipped him over the edge.
And I think that might have been what drove him to making a clear statement, I don't want a reconciliation.
Onlookers have also spotted similarities between Brooklyn and Nicola's catastrophic falling out with the Beckhams and a seismic split in another, perhaps even more famous, family.
There is a playbook for this. It is the Prince Harry playbook. We have seen this play out before.
Harry wanted to separate from his very famous family, didn't want to be involved in the way they ran things.
It's so deeply similar, and the frustration that both these men felt at the lack of control in their own lives over their own narratives. Also, the comparison of the two American wives as the meddling women that have torn apart these British families.
In fact, there were reports that in 2025, Brooklyn and Nicola met up with Harry and Meghan in Montecito.
So I broke the story that Harry and Meghan had invited Brooklyn and Nicola for dinner. Harry offered his sort of sympathies to Brooklyn and was a bit like, been there, done it, mate, you know, hope you're okay. There was very much a sense that these four felt that they had parallels in their lives.
Harry and Meghan probably thought, we can give them good advice. Or did they? Maybe they gave them very bad advice.
David and Victoria also seem to be copying the royal model.
Brand Beckham is like the firm. Don't complain, don't explain.
Opinions vary and recollections vary as well, as the Queen said.
If we look back at history from what they have done before, they definitely won't be taking any accountability. I have no idea what their response will be, but I doubt they're going to apologise.
David, what's your reaction to Brooklyn's statement?
Hey, how are you? Good
This
afternoon.
is your son Brooklyn, Mr. Beckham. You guys are reconciled, David.
Please.
It was business as usual. This hasn't really happened. Acting like he hasn't really seen what's been blown up on social media.
It's been the biggest.
But David did make what seemed like veiled comments about Brooklyn in a CNBC interview while discussing social media.
They make mistakes. Children are allowed to make mistakes. That's how they learn. So that's what I try to teach my kids. But you have to sometimes let them make those mistakes as well.
It's like, are you talking about your son? Because your son is a 26-year-old man, by the way. He's not a child.
It's a way of almost asserting his power, just reminding his son gently, you know, I'm the one that's in control here. I'm the reason why you have this public profile. I'm the reason why you have this name.
For some, Brooklyn is simply making it clear that his new wife and what he describes as his future family come first.
They have spun it around to make Nicola the bad person, and I think that's been so hurtful for Brooklyn that he has had no other alternative but to come forward with this statement.
By him saying future family in the post, Brooklyn is making quite clear that he is going to prioritise Nicola and the children that they eventually have together. He's very much saying, this is who my family is now. And I think those priorities were very clear-cut in his message.
But legions of David and Victoria's supporters have also rallied to their defence.
While a lot of people resonate with what Brooklyn has said, he simply does not have the fans and the years of social media cultural dominance that his parents do. So you have Spice Girls coming out in support, you have Victoria sharing the image of her and Emma Bunton.
A lot of people were posting, asking everyone to stream Not Such an Innocent Girl. She was flying up the charts. She was the only Spice Girl that never managed to get a solo #1. And then it happens. She's #1 in the UK. This has simultaneously got to be the best and worst week of her life.
The rest of the family also put on a united front, appearing together in Paris for the first time since Brooklyn's extraordinary outburst. And on the social media front, both camps are continuing as normal.
We've seen Brooklyn post a really gushing tribute to his wife, to a Coldplay song. You know, they're kissing, they're holding up their dog. There's this like beautiful sunset montage. And then on the other side in Paris, you've got Victoria Beckham showing off professionally, winning this esteemed award in recognition of her work in fashion. So you've got this very interesting personal-professional clash, which sort of sums up this whole nightmare.
With the two sides seemingly further apart than ever, what might unfold next in this crisis embroiling the Beckhams? And can their public image recover?
Do I think that Brooklyn Beckham has crossed a line? Yes.
I wonder if it's really dawned on Brooklyn the weight of what he's done.
Part of what is interesting is how many moves does he have left? After the explosive statement, where do you go next?
I suspect he's going to be thrown lots of money to have a book deal like Harry did.
You can read more about my quest for privacy in my upcoming best-selling memoir, whether we're going to see him on podcasts. And if what he wants is privacy, then this is a great moment for him to go and do that.
Once you pour kerosene on the flames in this way, it is difficult to rein it back in again. The cat can't be put back in the bag. It feels a bit like a conflict that's going to irreparably damage both sides, if I'm being honest.
In my opinion, the only way to respond to this is to respond in a really human way and to just take accountability. They should just try and respond to this as humanly and as honestly as they can.
The dangerous situation now is where they go next. There are secrets to come out. Brooklyn knows those secrets. And if David and Victoria don't play this one wisely, those secrets could come out and it could potentially be the end of Brown Beckham.
Thank you.